So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a few minutes to discuss section 2, and then we'll start section 3, and section 3 will carry us through tomorrow. So you will have an assignment for today, okay, and then you will also have an assignment for tomorrow. So first of all, we're going to review FOIL. So if you remember, FOIL is an acronym. Okay, basically means first, outer, inner, last. Now when we're talking about first, we mean the first terms. So I'm going to take x times x, and that's my first term. X times x is x squared. The next one, I've got my outer terms. X times negative 2. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Next is my inner terms. My inner terms in this case will be positive 8 times x, which is 8x. And then my last terms, I'm going to take positive 8 times negative 2, which is negative 16. Finally, what you need to do as your final step is simplify those. So to simplify those, I'm going to add like terms here and here. And I get x squared plus 6x minus 16. Questions on that? Okay, are we remembering FOIL? We're going to look at another one. So let's go ahead and look at the next one here. Okay, x plus 3 times x minus 5. So what we're going to do is multiply first terms. So x times x, which is x squared. Next, I've got x times negative 5, which is negative 5x. My inner terms, I've got 3 times x, which is 3x. And then finally, my last terms, positive 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Final step, what I need to do is simplify. So my final answer will be what? X squared minus 2x minus 15. There you go. Questions? Think you can handle that?
Nope.
Shouldn't be too bad. Do we need okay, we're going to look at another one. This one's a little different because instead of just being x plus something times x minus something, we're going to now put in some other terms. So I've got 3y here times 5y. What is 3y times 5y? 15y squared. Outer terms. What am I going to get from my outer terms?
Negative 12y.
Negative 12y. Because that's 3y times negative 4. Don't forget the negative sign. Inside terms, what do I get?
Negative 10y.
Negative 10y. And then my last terms, what do I get? 8. Very good. Finally, simplify. What do you get?
Negative
15y squared
negative 22
minus 22y plus 8. Very good. Questions? All right, so the first part of your assignment is that. P6, 2 through 18. All you're going to be doing is exactly what we just got done doing in class. You're going to be foiling those out. Now notice number 18 is a word problem. That's fine. You should be able to do that. Okay? Use some higher order thinking skills there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to briefly go over some factoring of polynomials, and then we will continue with the factoring of the polynomials tomorrow. So, section 3 is on factoring polynomials. Now this is kind of the opposite of FOIL in a way. This first problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this, and I only have 2 terms. So there's 2 things I look for when I have 2 terms. I look for the difference of 2 squares, or I look to see if I can take out something in common. Is there something in common with 4a squared and 8a? Yep, there's a 4 and there's an a. That's right. So I'm going to take out a 4a. Now, if I take out a 4a from 4a squared, what is left? A. A plus If I take a 4 from an 8, okay, what times 4 gives me 8? 2. Since I've already taken the a out, I'm done. So that is just going to be your final answer. Now, here's a little check that you can do. When you get done, you should be able to distribute this 4a to each of the terms, and you should get exactly what we started with. Okay, 4a times a, we know is 4a squared. 4a times 2 is 8a. So that is in fact correct. Okay, so I look to take out something that's in common with all terms. The next thing, oops, skip that, go back. Go back. Let's see if I got one more. Yep. I'm looking for here, this is 2 terms. Is there something that's in common that I can take out? No. So since there's nothing in common, I'm going to look to see if I know something about the numbers 9 and 16. What do I know about 9? Nine's a special number, so 16. What's so special about them? They're perfect squares. What is squared to give me 9? 3. Now in this case, it's actually going to be 3x because I've got an x there. What is squared to give me 16? 4. So in this case, this is the difference of 2 squares, the differing of 2 squares pattern that we learned back in Algebra 1. And so if you remember what I do, since I have the 3x and the 4, I'm going to write those down in each set of parentheses. Does anybody remember what I do next? One is positive, one is what? Negative, and there you go. That's all there is to it. So when you have 2 terms, that just means 2, like in this case 9x squared and 16. You look to see if you can take something out. If you can't take anything out, you look for the difference of 2 squares. All right, let's look at the next one. 25x squared minus 81y squared. Is there something in common that I can take out? Okay, there's nothing in common like that first one. That first one we took out 4a, right? There's nothing in common here. So now I'm looking for squares. Is 25 a perfect square?
Yes.
Okay, so really if I take this one down, it will be 5x because you've got x squared, right? What about 81? What would that be? 9y. So to factor that, remember, I'm going to use the 5x and the 9y in each set of parentheses. And then what do I know? Plus and a minus. Could I do it this way? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, so 2 terms, we're looking for difference in squares. Now what we're going to do is look at that. Do we remember this? 3 terms. Can I take anything out with all 3? No. So this is where I look at the last term. Okay, 2 factors of 8 that add to 9. What are those 2 factors of 8 that add to 9?
1 and 8.
1 and 8. How do you get a positive 9 from 1 and 8?
You add.
Positive 1, positive 8. Remember, that's when we attach the signs. We always attach the signs to those at the very end. And then remember, we write these as 2 quantities. So the first quantity will be x plus 1. What's my next quantity going to be? X plus 8. There you go. So now this is what we're going to be looking at for the rest of today. We're just going to be factoring trinomials. Now tomorrow we're going to look at special kinds of trinomials that we didn't quite get to in algebra. So x plus 1 times x plus 8. All right, let's look at another one. X squared minus 8x plus 15. Now if you remember, we played factor bingo. I don't know if you guys remember this. We did play factor bingo where you were able to factor these. So I look for 2 factors of what in this case? 15 that add to 8. What are those 2 factors? 5 and 3. And then remember what I do is I look at the sign here. How can I get a negative 8 from 5 and 3? Negative 5, negative 3. So what will this factor to be? X minus 5. Yep. And then?
Minus 3.
X minus 3. Does it matter if I put the 3 or the 5 first? Nope. all.
So we only do that if there's 3 numbers?
Only if there's 3 numbers. 2 numbers, we look to see if we can take something out, and the difference of 2 squares. Okay, let's look at this one. This one's a little different because we have a minus sign in there now. Okay, so 2 factors of what? 8 that
Different.
differ by. Remember that minus sign on the very last one means they differ by. 2 factors of 8 that differ by 2. What are those? 2 and 4. How can you get a negative 2? Oops. How can you get a negative 2 from 2 and 4? Negative 4, positive 2, right. So then this would factor to be x plus 2 times x minus 4. All right, so far so good? Got a couple more. Let's look at this one. 2 factors of what? 18 that differ by what? 3. What are they? 2 factors of 18. 6 and 3. How do you get a positive 3 from 6 and 3? Good. So this will factor to be x plus 6 times x minus 3. Think you got the hang of that? Okay. Do you want to look at any more? I've got one more on that one, or do you think you can handle it?
Those goes.
Okay. Real quick, what number is here since there's not a number in front of x? 1. So this would be differ by 1. All right, so here you go. Then there's your assignment on page P8, 1 through 6, 19 through 24. So this is due tomorrow. Now tomorrow we'll continue with the factoring problems.